started.
Okay, I was getting feedback from somebody, so I've turned off everybody's microphone automatically, but I am here in a second. I'm going to try turning them back, turning all the microphones on, or at least allow for them to be on, so that we can do questions and answers and comments along the way. But what that means, and for that to work, you all have to individually turn off your own microphone or mute your own microphone and only turn it on when you want to actually say something. I'll give you all a few seconds here to do that. And then when I turn the presentation over to Jack, which I'm going to do here in a second, then I will allow for microphones, all of your microphones to come in if you've in fact unmuted them and tried to say something. So hopefully that's clear. If for some reason it doesn't work out and we get too much feedback or background noise or whatever, then I'll have no choice but to shut everybody off except the speaker, which will be Jack or me. You can always use the chat feature of the video system. There's a chat button probably somewhere around or on your video screen. If you click on that, you'll find a chat box pop up probably on the right-hand side, and you can talk to everybody by text, basically. And that reminds me, Jack mentioned to me that if you don't see any of those controls, like turning your microphone mute and unmute, or your video, or the chat button, or whatever, you may need to touch the screen of your device. And then I understand the controls will pop up somewhere, and they'll stay there for a little bit, 20 seconds, until you either use them, or if you don't use them, they'll fade away. So let me now move on one slide. Just as an introduction to Jack Hutchison's portion of this, we're of course talking about Central Coast Railroad festivals, which probably all of you have been to, if not once, many times. Although it's possible we have on here people who have not ever been to one. So we're trying to share as much as we can in an hour, roughly. Just all the fun and excitement that has occurred and continues to occur at these festivals. So Jack's going to take over first, and he's going to share with us the model layouts that are available to be seen during the festival, and we'll let him talk about that. Okay, hang on. Okay, Jack, it should be coming to you, and I'm going to unmute the system. So hopefully everybody has their microphones muted for the time being. Jack, you on? Oh, no, I'm busy.
Ended.
There we go. There we go. Okay. So can everyone see the screen now with my video?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So I'm going to, all right. So my name is Jack Hutchinson, and I am a video producer in the area. And I'm because I make videos, it's really easy for me to do videos for the museum as well. And so the last few years, I've gone around to the different layouts on the layout tour for the Central Coast Railroad Festival. And I've gotten lots of really great footage of some amazing layouts. And it's amazing how many layouts there are. Not all the layouts are available every year. A lot of times people will just do it once, or maybe they'll skip a couple of years because it is a lot of work for them. So you'll see layouts that I only went to once or twice. But I normally, when I do my videos, when I put it on YouTube to show as just a standalone video, I like to cut it up and make it real short and sweet, so it makes it more entertaining, more fast-paced. But for this presentation, what I've done is I went through all 4 years of my raw footage of all the layouts that I filmed, and I just strung together the best clips. They're all usable. With freeconferencecall.com, there's no right now. There's no audio that you're going to hear from my video. You'll only hear me narrating. But with some of them there is some audio, but you just won't hear it today. So I start out with G scale, and then I go all the way down to Z scale, and then we end with a miniature railroad. So I'll start now. I can't tell you the details of where these layouts are because we just reserved that information for right before the festival. They send out a PDF they put it on the website so that people can download that and plan where they're going to go. But I'm not going to talk about that right now. But anyway, so we'll start. This is a G-scale layout. We're going to do a bunch of G-scale layouts. This is in a backyard on the Central Coast. That's, as you can see, it's on a hillside, and which is really great because it provides a lot of great grade work where this thing is constantly going up and down. It's got some good straightaways too. So you can see you got multiple layers. You got water in there. They started this just about 3 years ago, maybe. So this is all just a work in progress, as most model railroads are. But this is, very at the beginning stages, and it's going to be amazing. In a few years, you're going to see some even more amazing stuff. This is all footage because it's so hard to get around. I used my drone to get the footage. I also used, on some layouts, I used a handheld camera and a little miniature camera. But with this layout, it's just so much easier to just fly my drone around. And this is an electric layout, but they can still do steam and battery power. But there's electric. They've got a separate layout here on the top, that Golden Gate Bridge there. So this is a different layout. This is going to be made to look like Disneyland, and as you can see here, right in the foreground, there's a little trolley on what is going to be like Main Street, USA, and so there's the other end of the layout there. And I got some drone footage, and then the rest you'll see some footage from actually inside the train with my miniature camera. So this is going to be really great. So he's got a separate layout in the middle there. That little train there is a separate layout that just kind of loops around, that doesn't interact with the others. And then here's my miniature camera right next to the train to get some really great detail of these G-scale. This is a battery layout, or a electric layout as well. And a bunch of other people in the, usually with these layouts, they invite people to bring their own trains to run on the layouts. It depends on the person, but. So this is my miniature camera that has a little stabilizer in it, so I can put it in the train and run it around and get some point of view shots. And it took probably about 10 minutes to go around, but so you just see the highlights there. This was last year, by the way, for this layout. And then we're coming to the end of this layout. So that you can see they have nice little places for people to sit in the shade, snack while they're watching the trains. That's what's cool about garden railroads, is that you can just kind of sit out there and just chill and just watch the trains run around. It's kind of relaxing. So I can't wait to see what other landscape and buildings he's going to put in that blank area there. So this is G-scale in San Ynez area, and I'm walking with a stabilized camera on this one. And this was a very, very cool layout. Lots of bridges and rock work there. And this was not last year, but the year before. So this was in 2018. And hopefully they'll open this up again sometime in the future.
What did you do to get in there?
Sophie's probably his wife's name.
Computer, audio, and then video.
And so that's that layout. And then the next one, this is in Orchid, and I was able to put even my bigger camera on this car. So the point of view, this is the first layout that they put up in their backyard, which is probably about 20 feet by 10 feet. It's kind of a figure eight kind of a layout. And that was their first layout they put up. And originally, this was going to be the only one. And then they had so much fun with this one, they decided to put a much, much bigger one in their yard. And you'll see that in a sec here. So this is going up around on top of the bridge that we went under at first. And yeah, this layout is crazy. It takes about the bigger layout. This is his bigger layout. Well, the layout we were on just a second ago is to the right up there. So this is his newer layout, and this one probably takes about 8 minutes to go all the way around. And so I just kind of took some of the better parts. Now that's a lot of maintenance. You got to keep the tracks clear and stuff. But it's a lot of fun to follow that around. And he's got plenty of room there to kind of chill. So he usually does his layout once every other year. And then this is, in fact, this one's going to have its own, they're having an open house today at this layout down in Orchid. This is Walter Wadja. And I might, if I have the time, I think I might be able to go down there. And in part of his layout, at least in the past, I went inside the house for a little bit. So this layout is this is a live steam locomotive. This is in Orchid as well, and this guy has this one loop, and then he put an extension in since I filmed this one, but he's got some really cool things on his. This is all live steam. That's a drawbridge, so you can walk underneath, or you pull it up. And in the background there, with that retaining wall, the background, that's where the new branch is for that layout. So hopefully his layout will be open this year. So, and this layout is no longer up, but this is in Paso Robles. This goes from this guy's front yard into his backyard, and you'll also see later on the same guy has an HO layout inside his house, and he's just decided to put all his energy into that layout. But it's kind of cool when you have the layout above the ground by a couple feet at least. It's a little easier to work on, easier to see. So this is going into his backyard.
one year they were there. I was out there running the G-gauge.
So I think this is the last of the G-scale layouts, as I recall. No, one more. That's right. This is down in Orchid. This was like 2-3 years ago. This one was jam-packed with people, and it's a fairly compact layout, but it's got some really great aspects to it with lots of grades and trestles. He's got a big railroad crossing signal in the front in his driveway. So he's got like 2 layers, 2 levels on this this layout. So this is the first of the O-gauge layout. This is one guy in his attic in his barn. I filmed this with my iPhone. This was a last-minute decision to go film, so I didn't bring anything but my iPhone, but worked out pretty well. But O-gauge, that's what I grew up with. A lot of guys have O-gauge. This is pre-World War II O-gauge, and that's the guy that owns it there, running it. And a lot of this is like tin plate stuff. And then the next layout you'll see is the same guy. This is his outdoor layout, and it's rare to have an O-gauge outdoor layout, but he does, and it's above the ground, as you can see. And this is, of course, electric. O-gauge is always electric, and he said that it takes 4 man-hours of track cleaning every time that he wants to run the trains. So it takes a lot of maintenance with an outdoor track if you want to maintain good electrical connections. And don't know if that was a visitor or one of his grandkids or whatever, but yeah, this is a really cool layout. So now we're going into HO. This is down in Oceano. This is an amazing layout built by a guy back in the 70s and 80s, and his son now runs the layout and is actually expanding it, though I didn't use any footage from that because it's not finished. But this guy just has an amazing, he did just amazing landscape work there. And this is the Northern Pacific. Now we're getting into more of the photorealistic, prototypical layouts that are designed to really look like the real thing. And there are 2 categories to layouts. There's prototypical and what's called toy, or I like to call action layouts. Action layouts are the ones that aren't as realistic, but there's just tons of accessories and all these kinds of things going on, and there's the track is just jam-packed in a small area. So this is an HO layout in Atascadero, modeled after the Southern Pacific in the mountains of Sierra, and a little bit on the Central Coast, and also in the Southwest, although that part isn't done, so you won't see that. But I love seeing the cab forwards, and he's got that great background with the posters. There are places you can get those. And you got some great bridge work, and then of course there's a GS. Don't know what GS that is, but and so this is his upper part. This is in his barn that he cut off part of his barn and blocked it off and made a layout out of it.
No, it was a horse stable thing.
So this is up in Paso Robles. This is Southern Pacific or Union Pacific between San Luis Obispo and Paso Robles. That's what's being modeled here, and of course it's still in progress, but we made some good progress so far, though. So this is in Atascadero, and this is a room that's about 20 by 40 feet. The building was built specifically for a train room. This is the Western Pacific, up near Lake Tahoe, west of Lake Tahoe. And this guy is just, he's amazing. The rock work and the trees, so many trees. But he's really, really good on the details there. Then he's also got an HON3 layout separately.
That's simply.
So this is his HON3 layout. In the next room, this was in his garage. You can see the cars in the background there. So this is, I believe, is another HON3. This was in the between San Luis Obispo and Avila Beach. And this guy, funny thing, he said, you know, trains are okay, but what I really like doing is building model buildings. So he said the trains are just an excuse for me to build miniature buildings. As you can see, he does an amazing job. He loves those buildings, and they do look, they all have such character.
This is HO, HON3, and OH. I do have 3 of those different sections of the same layout. I think we've got some N-gauge too.
So now we start with N-gauge. This is at the Oceano Depot, and they are open quite a lot. This is what's called a modular layout. And if you look carefully, you can see seams in between these modules. And a club will come up with a standard of how wide and how long and how tall your module has to be, and exactly where the tracks have to be at the edge, so that you can build anything you want in the middle, but at the edge they have to connect. So they basically build these huge layouts with these modules just stuck together. And what that does is it allows people to get involved in model railroading without having to have a huge part of their room, their house blocked off for trains. They can build it, put it in their Honda, and go and attach it to a module layout at trade shows, and they're all over. And different clubs have different standards, of course. So this is at the museum, at the library in San Luis Obispo. This was the Orange County Engineers, and so they had this huge layout that they put together. And you'll see a clip coming up of a guy explaining all the different weird characters that he had on the layout. He had Godzilla and stuff, and so he has a lot of fun with his modules. They're pretty fun to look at. And then this is in a guy's house. This is, I think, a 7 by 3 feet, something like that. Very small, compact layout. This is the Southern Pacific in the Sierras, and just a tiny little layout. It's been done for a number of years, actually. I'm kind of showing the train as it goes through the whole layout, except, of course, taking out the parts where it's in the tunnels. But there's a lot of really great detail here. And then, so then this is a Z-scale layout in the same guy's house. Z-scale is so tiny, it's like the locomotives, if you stick your pinky out, that's about the size of the locomotives. So we just got started on this layout. And you can even make a little Z-scale layout in a briefcase. So now we're ending with a 7.5-inch gauge layout. You can ride around. It's in a backyard. I think it's 2 acres, and it takes about 12 or 15 minutes to go around the entire layout. And this was a paid admission session where people bought tickets and then they could go ride the trains. And we did this again this was last year, and this was great because I was able to get some great stabilized footage on the car trains themselves, and then also use my drone. So there they are, putting everything away. And that's the end of the video. So take it back to you, Jamie.
Okay, let me make that happen here. Hang on, everybody. Just gotta get the slides going. Okay, so now we're back to where Jack was. I think I'm going to go back to lecture mode, which means I'm the only one who can talk. We didn't get any questions or anything anyway, and I did hear occasionally background conversations and some noise, so if you don't mind. What that means is if you want to communicate with me, either comments or questions, you can still do that, but instead of talking into your microphone, use the chat system. There's a little button somewhere on your screen probably that says chat underneath of it. If you're not seeing the chat session, click on that and you probably will. If you don't see any controls, you probably need to tap your screen, and then the controls should pop up, including the chat button. Okay, so now, thank you very much, Jack. That was great of you to do that wonderful footage. I love sitting here enjoying that. So now I'm going to continue with everything else, you might say, in terms of the Central Coast Railroad Festival. And before I leave the model railroads, I want to thank Bob Chaparro again for his work every year putting together this model layout tour for the festival. Most of the layouts that you saw are totally private. You cannot see them short of being a friend of the owner. And one of the rare opportunities to see many of these is through the model layout tour of the Central Coast Railroad Festival. So keep that in mind next time you're considering attending. All right, let's move on then. Okay, let's start at the very beginning, so to speak. Isn't that a Sound of Music song or something? The Central Coast Railroad Festival was founded by Curtis Reinhardt, who I think is on the line with us today. So I hope you're enjoying this, Curtis. If not, you can yell at me later. Back in 2009, early 2009, there were at least a couple organizational meetings where Curtis brought together everyone he could get to come who would be interested in starting something like this. And I very well remember one of those meetings, at least, that was held at the PG&E Community Center off of Highway 101 there as you're headed towards Avila Beach. And on the screen there, too, you can also see a list of some of the original sponsors that helped get this festival started: Amtrak California, Westpac companies, etc. A couple of those are still with us, have been supporting it since year one. Some have changed. It's a little fluid, as you might imagine, as people are able to do these sorts of things. So thank you, Curtis. Thank you, the original sponsors. Thank you for everybody who helped get that first one going. As you all know, if you've ever tried to start an event, it's quite an undertaking. So now we're going to jump into some of the features all along the way. Some are still going on, some are not. This one that we're looking at here, in the original festivals, probably the first couple, 3 years, and this one, the pictures you're seeing are from 2009, the official opening event of the festival those years was a booth at the Thursday night San Luis Obispo Farmers Market. It was sort of the kickoff. It was an opportunity to pass out materials about the weekend coming up to who knows how many hundreds or even thousands of people that go through that farmers market on a given Thursday night. So there's the pictures of the booth. On the right, you can see it from a distance a little bit. On the left, you can see some of what was in the booth. There were also tables handing out literature and so on. So that was kind of a fun thing each year. Let's see, where's my, there we go. This, of course, the Freight House has always been part of the museum. In fact, it's been, or of the festival. It's been part of the festival even since before the museum was open. And like in 2009, the first festival, the museum was not yet open. It was still under renovation and construction and so on. But that didn't stop us from having a fairly large event there. Up in the upper left-hand corner, there was a golden spike ceremony to finish off, or at least appear to finish off, the display track that runs along the museum. On the upper right, you can see that display track with the yellow and orange speeder sitting on it. The main line, the Union Pacific main line that Amtrak and everything else uses, goes right by the museum, and you can see the Amtrak train there. Among the activities of the day was a dedication of the Icons of an Era statue or monument. I'm not sure what you'd call that. Piece of art that sits in front of the museum in the roadway. And there in the lower right is part of the dedication ceremony that day. The library's community room was used a lot, particularly in the early days before the museum was available to be used. Here's a couple pictures from what was there the first year, 2009. Dennis Pearson's ON30 model that you can see there on the left, and there were various artists and photographers that provided displays like the one on the right, also in the same room. And then that room was also used for talks, for people to come in and do presentations to however many people we could get in that room about whatever it was they wanted to talk about. The IOFF Hall in Arroyo Grande was the location of a number of talks during 2009. This is one of the display sets that are there in that building. We hop back to the SLO library in 2009 to note that some of the years, particularly in the early years, there were railroad music concerts as part of the festival. On the left, Steve Key was one of our performers. David Baumgarten, more a local guy, on the right. And these are at the San Luis Library. There are a number. You'll see this happen a couple of times, various venues and various people, particularly in the early years. This was a fun tour of the Hartford Pier that was led by Brian Krialski, who I think was a port or pier board member at the time. Not entirely sure about that, but I think that's true. And of course you all know, or most of you know, that the Pacific Coast Railway went out onto this pier in its early days, bringing materials and passengers to and from the port to downtown San Luis Obispo. So among the many things Brian's talking about is where the tracks were, what they did. There's even a location, at least there was at the time, where you can see some of the old Pacific Coast Railway embedded in cliff behind one of the parking lot areas. It's only about a couple foot section of it you can see, but it's there, or at least it was back then. Jack showed you some great footage of the Bitter Creek Western Railroad, the ride-on railroad that in his video. Bitter Creek and Carl and Stephanie have been key people with the festival all along too, and a number of years they make available their railroad typically for a fundraiser for the museum. That's why Jack mentioned that there was a ticket price to get in. It was a fundraiser for the museum. It's a great little railroad up on the mesa just outside of Rio Grande. Again, private by and large. There are very few public occasions for that railroad, and if you want to go enjoy it, you got to keep your eye out for them, like when they happen to be a part of a year's railroad festival. Down in Arroyo Grande, there was a Pacific Coast Railway display in 2009 at the E.C. Loomis building, which of course you know the Pacific Coast Railway went right through this area that we're looking at on the right, with a station or a depot or something there for goods to be taken on and put off. And I think there was an associated tour of the area too, meaning kind of the village of Rio Grande and some of the interesting spots. Central Coast Trains on the right and Doc Bernstein's on the left. They've been part of the festival all along, still are. Of course, they're retail businesses, both of them. The railroad feature part of that is that they both have operating railroad layouts in their businesses. On the left, you can see in the upper part a G-scale train that runs around the ceiling. And in the case of Central Coast Trains on the right, that's one of, I think, 3 layouts that are in their store that are available to be enjoyed. At least there were, of course, this was 10 years ago, roughly, for both of them. I'm not sure exactly how it looks today, but I bet something similar. Okay, now we moved on to 2010 to get some kind of unique things that have happened with the festival over the years. Grover Beach, the city of, participated one year because they were dedicating or giving a formal update or something about their Grand Avenue beautification project down by the Grover Beach Amtrak station. The Station Grill is a restaurant. This is the picture on the left. The Station Grill is a restaurant just across the railroad tracks from the Amtrak station, and part of the area of 4th Street that was improved by this, which you can see a picture of in the middle. Most of this activity was in the evening. And then on the right is, at the time, Mayor Scholes, who was giving a thanks for coming, isn't this great kind of talk to the crowd there. In 2010, we had, this might have been the first wine rail excursion that the museum did. I'm not sure about that exactly, but it dates back a ways and might have been the inaugural one. They've become pretty popular, and I think, I understand they're trying to get back in that business with wineries. Most of the ones that we've used in the past aren't doing that anymore, or have changed hands or one thing or another. Anyway, the Wine Wrangler helped organize this one in 2010. You ride the train up from San Luis Obispo to Paso Robles. You get off the train there. Right off the bat, right across the platform from the train are 2 wineries, or at least there were at the time. Anglum was at one end of the old depot building, and that's the picture on the right. And at the other end of the same restored depot building was or still is, a winery called Dandino, which that's a fun one too. Pretty highly music oriented, and a little bit of train because they're right there. And then they go off into the wilds of Paso Robles, sometimes visiting places like Pomar Junction, which sold a couple years ago, and others that are somewhat train themed. There were a couple of years when speeder rides were available at the museum during the Railroad Festival for $1 a shot. Those were always fun. They haven't done that in a while. I'm not sure exactly what went wrong. Maybe it was a safety issue or new railroad rules issues or something. But when they were doing them, it was a lot of fun. Oh, I get a note says it was insurance problems. Yeah, I can see that. The Price House was part of the 2010 Railroad Festival. And while they're not exactly railroad related, they brought out a little train to run around the house for the festival. So we appreciate their getting into the spirit of the thing. The Price House is a very interesting place anyway, part of Pismo Beach's history, all of South County really, their history, and it's worth a visit. I don't know when they're open these days, but I trust they are. There's a couple of pictures from Pomar Junction from 2010. Remember, this is one of the ones that sold a couple of years ago, and I don't know exactly what their status is in terms of what was left there that was railroady or what the new people are doing with it or anything. But that's the way it looked like in 2010. It was a really fun place to mix wine and railroading. Not pictured there, there was a boxcar in front of the caboose, at the opposite end of the caboose that's pictured at the right. Also sitting on the same track, hooked together just for display purposes. That picture on the right is what you saw from their back deck as you were lounging there having a sip on some wine. It was really fun. The Oceano Depot has always been a part of the festival, or at least since 2010, and maybe the original one too. And in there, the St. Louis Model Railroad Association has always, I think, as part of the festival, set up a bunch of their layouts for display purposes. The depot has its own layout in the caboose that's out back, and then the Model Railroad Association fills that main empty void in the depot area with trains too. And they are part of the model layout tour as well. Let's see, where am I? Here we go. In 2010, there was a concert at Heritage Square Park as part of the festival. That's down in Arroyo Grande, just behind the village. You can see what the concert looked like on the left using the pavilion as the stage. On the right is a picture of inside one of the restored, preserved buildings that are right part of the same complex. There's a school building, a museum with, or barn with these old, like the stuff that's shown on the right in it. It's quite a little display when you catch it open. You got to be careful it's not open a whole lot of times, or at least it wasn't then. But it makes for a very cool little afternoon, and after which, of course, you can go up to Doc Bernstein's in the village and get some ice cream. So it works out really nice. Here's just a few pictures of other model layout tours, things like Jack was showing. Again, Bob Shapiro has been at this since the beginning and is already committed to doing it this year. Keep your fingers crossed that we actually have a festival this year, given what's going on. But there's a couple of G scales on the right, some HO stuff on the left. The guy with the camera here in the center picture reminded me, one of the years, one of the TV stations covered the model layout tours and actually came out and filmed this particular G-scale layout in the right and upper to do as part of their promotion of the festival. Oh, somebody on the chat said, I assume they're talking about Pomar Junction. He said they're turning one of the cars into an Airbnb. That's interesting. That would be fun. Let's see. The Quality Sweets has been part of the festival off and on over the years, and particularly in the beginning years when the museum was not available, the talks were held over there in their little meeting rooms. This particular year, 2011, those four folks, Steve Hayes, Dennis Pearson, Rob Hamoto, and myself, all gave talks over there. In 2011, there was a train party at Grover Beach as part of the festival. That's the Grover Beach station, Amtrak station there in the middle. There was clowning around, all kinds of fun down at the station, and then the folks that wanted to boarded the train at Grover and rode up the rest of the way to San Luis Obispo. It was a really fun afternoon. In 2011 was the year that festival attendees got their first look at the inside of what's now the San Luis Obispo Railroad Museum, the Freight House. And you can see there some pictures of what the interior looked like. And then in the lower right, we had a music group playing on the platform and all kinds of displays and fun stuff around the outside of the building, because that's mainly what you could do. In 2012, open but not complete in any sense, or at least in terms of the model railroad area, Union Pacific designated San Luis Obispo as one of its Traintown USAs. That was kind of a big deal. Of course, we made a lot of excitement and whatnot around that whole process. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see a Fremo group came in and set up a layout in the museum at a time when the museum was really brand new in terms of being occupied and had not nearly been filled up with the types of displays and so on that it has now. Part of the layout tour of that year was the Lompoc Model Railroad Club. I'm not sure they're still doing their thing, but it was a pretty cool, small but cool layout, very detailed, of the Lompoc Valley, as you might imagine. So you saw the downtowns and the areas associated with that. It was pretty cool, pretty cool. At the Fremont Theater in 2013, there was a significant concert put on as part of the Railroad Festival. Dave Holt was the headliner, and you can see in the background there, that big picture of Dave with the red and blue is not live. That's a picture of him on the big screen in the background. Notice that Dave Holt himself is in the lower right-hand corner of that picture, much, much, much smaller. It was a great concert. It was really fun, and that idea of having railroad songs played while you have railroad photographs flashing behind on a screen that size, it was pretty impressive. And the museum is open, thank the Lord. This was in 2013. This was the first year that during the festival it was open. It was kind of a grand opening as part of the festival. You can see the kind of crowds that drew. And you can see at least some of the model railroad there in the lower right is in place now. The kids' play station. Things are starting to take shape. There were a number of things over the years for photo art and art of railroads. This was one of them in the early years. 2013, there was a program dubbed Shiny Rails, an artist reception and display that was held at the Central Art Supply and Gallery in downtown San Luis. I think they're on Monterey, but one of those three, Marsh, Monterey, Higuera, kind of upper end. And that was a fun event, and there have been various ones since. So I think we might tap various railroad art kind of things since. In 2015, over at the Jack House, there was a railroad poetry evening, and then a tour of the Jack House as well. This is also in downtown San Luis Obispo. You can see some of the poetry being read or or delivered in the upper right, upper left. Lower left, there was a tour given of the Jack House after the poetry reading. And then the lower right is another separate event that occurred at the San Luis Obispo History Center as part of the festival. In this case, a Pacific Coast Railway display. It was very nice. It was over in their rotating exhibit or new exhibit area, and it was pretty cool. Another year, the following year, the Jack House did Railroad Songs as an event in one of the evenings. I forget which evening. You can see the group starting to get organized in the upper left with the piano player and some of the song types. Then below there was some displays set up about railroad-related pieces of history that also somehow related to the Jack House, which was only just down the street from the railroad tracks and the stations and hotel at the time. And at some point you could get between the two by a stagecoach-like thing or trolley-like thing on rail that was horse-drawn up and down, I think it was Higuera Street. Could have been, again, I'm not sure about the street. Could be Marsh, too. So that was fun. And then, of course, the Jack House itself is pictured in the upper right. This was a unique event one year where there was a bike tour available as part of the festival, 2016, where they biked along the route of the Pacific Coast Railway from the museum to the, I think it's referred to as the Octagonal Barn, which I sadly don't know a lot about, but it's a fair little bike ride away, and seeing whatever spots along the way kind of made were noteworthy railroad-wise. The San Luis Obispo Library, every year I think, maybe they didn't the first year, but I think starting the second year and every year since, have been a wonderful part of the festival with their story times and coloring contests. Story times typically occur during the month of September, throughout September, at all the library locations in the county. And they read, of course, railroad stories, and they hand out little goodie bags. And in some years, I don't know if it happened every year, but they also have a coloring contest where the kids can do a little coloring of a train scene of some sort, and then that culminates in a drawing or selection of some sort at the museum at the end of the festival, like sometime on Sunday. So they've been a huge supporter, great participant. And they are really the first thing that happens each year since they get started in early September. The event is typically early October, the first full weekend of October. So they're among them, or probably are, the most significant event of the festival. I should note too that typically the model layout tour starts on Thursday, which is officially a day before the festival itself starts, and then it runs the entire festival as well. So the tour is Thursday through Saturday, Thursday through Sunday, and the festival itself, one big day at the museum on Saturday, and then various events at other locations Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, moving on. 2017, not too many years ago, the new logo on display track at the museum. It's usually a good opportunity the festival is to show off all the new stuff. And of course, in the museum, 2018 is when these pictures were taken. The Central Coast Model Railroad, which is what they call the HO layout in the museum. It's a huge 1,200 square foot room with double deck layout. You can kind of see a schematic-like drawing in the lower right-hand corner there. It's a real draw for the museum, a very popular thing to see during the festival as well. And they're making steady progress. That's the cool thing. You come back every year and there's clearly new and improved stuff since the last year. More at the Railroad Museum. This is more like what it looks like these days. In the upper left-hand corner, you can visit the La Cuesta, the Pullman car that's out on the out on the display track. There's art and all kinds of vendors and booths, upper right-hand corner. Talks are given in the mid-right. That happens to be, I think that's Rob Himoto from the San Maria Valley Railroad giving a talk at the museum. There's several of those that go on during the day. Kid stuff. That in the center there is a portable model railroad that that the attendees can actually operate. It's a very fun display. It's not there all the time. It's usually just brought in for special events like the Railroad Festival. So that's a lot of fun. In 2018, we tried our beer train excursions for the first time, and when I say we, the museum did. Up the grade from San Luis to Paso Robles, that's the horseshoe curve you see upper left. And in this case, they went to Barrel House Brewing Company for the beer tasting. I think that's only happened once or twice. I don't know if that's ever going to come back, but if you're interested in, keep your eye out for it. This was also in Jack's video. This is Ken Kelly's Salinas Valley Redwood Forest, it's a long name, railroad, in the upper left-hand corner. That was the outside trains that he showed. And I think also part of this video might have been some of the inside stuff in his great train room. That's the upper right there, where he's got the most amazing collection of Lionel stuff from pre-war on that I've ever seen. He might have a better collection than Lionel themselves. I don't know about that, but it's incredible. And you can see all those cases along the walls that are just collections of cars and locomotives that are obviously not running on the layouts. It's really cool. If you ever get a chance to see it, do not miss that. Who knows what I missed along the way? I tried just to throw in some logos of participants who help make the festival happen each year and do something either at the museum or at their own location to tie into the railroad theme. Here's some of them. Obeda's Beer Garden, this one up here, he's the guy who did the Guinness Book of World Records largest Z-scale collection or something along those lines, and actually claimed it. The museum was out there the day they were doing the official count. It was kind of fun. That was not part of the festival, but the Beer Garden did support the festival by having some of those Z-scale models available to see. And I think they had beer at the museum once or twice, that sort of thing. So anyway, there's one set. Here's another. Types of people. Oh, I did not mention it. There was that artist thing early on. That's continued with various Arts Obispo coordination with events during the festival, and also separate events like Art After Dark is sometimes held at the museum. Those are always fun. Fremo's been there. There's some of the others. Friends of the Santa Maria Valley Railroad. Railroad Barbecue is a new one. I think they provided food last year and are on schedule to do it this year. RailPac had one of its meetings there, as did the Daylight, this one up here in the corner, the Daylight. That's an NMRA division that held its annual meeting at the festival one year. And here's another page of stuff. Sponsors, mostly sponsors and hotels and so on who support the event. Some significant in terms of financial support as well. And some more participants. This one is a museum in Santa Margarita. That's a picture in the museum of the Hotel Margarita. This one over here, Camp Roberts Museum. South Street Roundhouse is a group that's played at the museum a number of times, including for the festival. Although they've had a kind of a scheduling issue the last couple of years, and we haven't been able to get them back for the festival. Maybe they'll be back for some other event. And here's a list of what we know about the upcoming 2020 festival that's scheduled for October 2 through 4. And one of the brand new things that we're pretty excited about, let's hope this can happen, is a Coast Rail 2020. It's a new program at the museum. It's similar in nature to what was referred to as Winter Rail that happened up in Stockton, Sacramento area, and has since moved to a northern state. I forget which one. So we're thinking of getting that going on our own back in California with Coast Rail 2020, where it's a night of photography and video presentations, a little bit of pizza and so on. That will occur the Friday of the festival weekend, October 2nd. And then other confirmed returnees at this point, Railroad Barbecue will be back, Oxford Suites and Lamplighter Inn will both continue to sponsor as hotels. Bob Shapiro is going to do his layout tour again. The story times will happen, and Santa Maria Valley will be supporting, including talks at the museum. So you can watch the website for all kinds of updates. And in this particular case, unlike in the past, I am not going to put links to everything that you've heard talked about today on any website. All you need to go, the reason I don't need to do that, is because all you need to do is go to the ccrrf.com website, the festival website, and you will find more than you ever wanted to know with photos and so on of all these things, including links to them on all the pages. All the history is there, all the photos are there, and anything coming up will be there as well. So enjoy that. And lastly, thank you all for attending. I'm going to open it up back here in a minute to see if there's any questions. But let me hit 3 points before we close. You can always find out about the Parlor Car Chats at that web address at the top. We would very much appreciate your filling out the feedback survey. It's a 2 or 3 minute deal to let us know what you like, what you don't like, when's good times, when not's good times, blah, blah, blah. And there's the address for that. And a plug for next Saturday's Parlor Car Chat, same time, same station. And the topic will be the Pacific Harbor Line and ports down in LA. It'll basically be me giving commentary and showing slides from my trip down there and cruise around on the railroad and cruise around on the water to see everything from the water as well. So that would be next Saturday. Oh, somebody, it's not June 20th, it's June 27th is next Saturday. So not today, we just finished today. Next Saturday the 27th at 10 a.m. for this particular show. Thank you for catching that, Gary. Okay, let me open this back up. Unmute. See if anybody has any questions for either Jack or myself, or any comments you want to make, and otherwise we are done. Okay, well, hearing none, thank you all for coming this week. Hope to see you again next week. Thanks again, Jack, for
you're welcome. My pleasure.
Doing that great video, and that was wonderful. So, everybody, have a great Saturday. See you next week.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamie and Jack. That was great.
Yeah.